Okay, so in today's video we'll be talking about how to bend stainless steel tubing. The first tool you're going to need here is going to be a tubing bender. This is a Swagelok 3/8 tubing bender, and I'm going to show you guys how to do a few bends, 90, a 180, and an offset, how to do the measurements for that. So there's your bender. Next you're going to need a tape measure, a marker, a tubing cutter of some kind, a swing is preferred. You can use a bandsaw like that to make a cleaner cut. And then also how to swag down the fittings. And for 3/8 pipe, we will need a 5/8 opening wrench and 11/16. And also speed square, checks and 90s. So when it comes to tubing, tubing is used in many applications in industrial work, in oil and gas, food and beverage, paper, milling, water, filtration, hydraulic systems, many things like that. So if you're in the industrial and you're an electrician or a mechanic, you more than likely might have to bend some tubing, do some installs, things like that. So right off the bat, we're going to show you how to do the simplest bend, and that is 90. So we have our 3/8 tubing right here. So the first thing we're going to do is take our Sharpie, and we're going to make a mark at the very end. And we're going to go all the way around. Now this is a reference mark. The reference mark is so that we know which side that we measured from. So that's going to become very important here shortly. So we got that reference mark, and we're going to go ahead and do a 4" 90. So with tubing, it's very easy to do measurements. You just mark, that's where it goes. So 4 inches, you don't have to do a deduct or anything, not like conduit. Make a mark. And I like to make sure that all my marks, I go all the way around. Even though on a 90, I'm not going to need to flip it or anything, but it makes your marks all look uniform, and it's just a good habit to get into. So once you get that mark, again, it's 4 inches. We're going to double check that. So right at 4 inches. Good. Good. So now we take our bender. Now the label side is going to be facing you. So that label right here is going to be facing you. Okay. So I just flipped around for demonstration purposes. But we'll go ahead and stick it in, and then pull our lever down. Now, get it in there. Okay, once you get in there, you're going to lock it in with this lever. This little lever right here, you just push it in, you can open it, close it. Once you have that in there, you can't really move the pipe. You can do some fine adjustments on it, but you're not going to be able to move it very much. So, if we take a look, our bender right here is we have 0, 45, R, and L. We want to make sure that our mark is on that L because we measured from the left. That's why we put the reference mark there to remember what end we measured from. So we marked from the left, so that goes to the L mark. Now to bend it, very simple. You just simply pick it up, take its force, and you're going to push it all the way down to the 90. You can see that. You're going to push it all the way until 0 right there meets up with 90, and that will give you 90 degrees. Okay, and since this is stainless steel, we're just going to give it a tiny tick more because there's going to be a little spring back, meaning it's going to spring back a little bit, so it may not be exactly 90, it might be 89 or 88. Okay, simply unlock it, flip it up, take your tubing out, and now you have a tubing 90. So we can go ahead and measure that too, and make sure that it's nice and square, so we can see here. If you guys can see that, it's lined up very nicely against our speed square, so we know that this is a true 90. Very good. Once you do it a few times, you will get used to it, and you will no longer need a speed square. Or the first time's doing it, bend it into that 90 with that square, just to make sure you have it just right. Now, now we're going to double check our mark. And it's kind of hard to show you guys. this and move it around. But you should see right there, the bottom there, top, it's going to be 4 inches. So we have a 4-inch 90. Let's see if you guys can see the whole thing. Yeah, so we have a 4-inch 90 from the back of our 90. So that's something to remember too. When you're measuring, it's always from the back of this 90, and that's how you're going to get your accurate measurement. Okay, so we've done our tubing 90 now. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do an offset. So an offset is you might want to go up and over something. You're trying to avoid some kind of object. So let's say we want to do a 2-inch offset, okay? So we're going to use our same piece of tubing that we're using, and we're going to mark 4 inches right here, and then we're going to do our math for our offset. So if we want a 2-inch offset, that means from our mark that we're going to make here, 4 inches back, we make a second mark. The way that you figure that out is because I plan on doing a 30-degree bend. 30-degree multiplier is 2. If you've done any kind of conduit work, the same math applies. Same math applies for conduit bending as it does tubing bending. So we're going to do 2, we're going to do 4, and then mark it, and then we're going to measure another 4, and then mark it. Okay? Okay, so now we've made our marks. We have one at 4 inches. It's 4 inches from this 90, and then we have one at 8 inches. So first we're going to bend this first one at 30 degrees. So we're going to lock it. And what you're going to do, you're going to look down the pipe right there. You can make sure that's straight. You use your handle and you use this part. This is the anvil that you make sure that's where you get all your measurements from, or where you make sure it's nice and square. So again, we're measuring from the left. So we're going to put it on the left mark, which is going to be farther back here. Okay. So this is where I say you can do fine adjustments, right? So we have it lined up on our L. Now we're going to make sure that's nice and straight. Okay. All right. Now, just as before, we are going to take it. Just going to put a little pressure on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take it to the second line on there. Okay, so you guys can see that right there on the faceplate. We have 0, that one's 15, that one's 30, and that one's 45. So we went to 30. Okay, so now to offset, we are going to flip it up, lock it, pull it forward, flip it 180 degrees. Flip it 180 degrees. Again, we're going to line it up with the L because we've measured everything from the L, from the left. Lock it into place. Now we're going to look down our pipe again. And we're going to use our 90 that we bent before as a guide. Make sure that's straight. Okay. So look down it the other way. See that that's nice and straight. Okay. Now we do the same thing we did before. Go down to the second one. Pull our pipe out. And now we have an offset with a 90 on the end of it. Now this 90 looks like you got a little bent. A little too much. So this table's not exactly flat, but I can tell it's a little closed. So simply with that, you don't have to put it back in the bender or anything. All you can do is it's very easily manipulable. And just like that, we fixed our 90, and we have a nice clean offset. Okay, for our 2-inch offset. Go ahead and take a measurement for that. So again, this table isn't very flat, so it's not going to give us a real accurate measurement, but it's 2-inch offset. So those two are probably the most common bends that you're going to do, encounter. And we're going to show you one more bend, but first we're going to go ahead and give this a cut. Start with a fresh piece, just so we can make it a little easier on us. So when you do it, you have a swing cutter. You just want it just barely tight It makes a little scratch on the surface. About every turn, you tighten about 1/8 of a turn. So you can see I'm barely tightening this thing. Because you never want this thing to be tight or it's very hard to spin. You just want it so it's getting just a little bit deeper every time. And doing this patiently and doing a little at the time is going to make sure that your blade lasts a long time and also gives you a cleaner cut. If you're just trying to do it too fast, you might cave in the sides a little bit and just form it, and it makes it hard for the fitting the seal. And then once you feel about right there, it comes right out. You can see, nice, clean, straight cut every time. Okay, so our last bend is going to be 180 degrees. This is not as common, but it is important to learn because you may encounter it a lot of times if you are fitting for air supply, like to control valves and stuff. You might have to go up and around and on top. Very common to do in tighter spaces. So again, we're going to do from this side, and we are going to measure it from the left. Left is the most common thing that you're going to measure from. You'll use an R, the right, every once in a while, and just pay attention how you're bending. So we're going to do one at mark 4, and then, so we're going to do a mark at 4. I just like to use 4, it's just an easy number for me to remember. It's even. Usually 4 inches is a good number to start with. And what you want to remember when you're running tubing is you want to do as little fittings as possible and not try to get too complicated with your bends. It's more important to make it look nice and straight than it is to do a bunch of complicated bends. So if you have to put a fitting, then do it. But if you can avoid it, go for it. So actually, we're just going to do a stub. No, we'll do 4 inches. We'll do a 4-inch stub on that. Enough to get a fitting on it. Okay, so again, we measured from the left. So our mark goes to the L. So you can see the L lined up in my marker. Okay, so now we're going to bend to 90 again. Actually, we can go a little bit more. So we're going to go more like 100. Okay, so this part is very important. Everything's locked in, it's not going to move. So what you do is you unscrew this handle. And this is the beauty of having a Swagelok bender opposed to, like, let's say a rigid bender or an imperial. So now your handle is going to be positioned like this. And this is a little hard to do sitting down, but basically you keep on going until you reach 180 on your face plate. And that's 180, 0. So it's going to be just like that. And again, same thing. Then lift up your arm and lock it. Just push forward. It comes out just like that. So there you go. Now you have yourself a 180 degree bend, and you can see that is straight. There's no crook in it or anything. Nice thing about Swagelok benders, I've never seen a Swagelok bender oval this pipe or flatten it out, kink it or anything. I've seen other benders do it, but Swageloks do not. I'm not sponsored by Swagelok, but I'm just saying it's a good product. Okay, the next thing is going to be fittings. So here's a standard 3/8 coupling. These are very expensive. The only reason I'm going to use these is because I have extra ferrules, and I'll explain why in a minute. So if you took these apart, you have to be careful. Take them apart. Drop it like that. Okay. Inside of that nut, you're going to have 2 pieces. You're going to have this little ring. Sits in there like that. And you're going to have this little sleeve. Goes in there. It's so easy to get these upside down. And it can be a real pain in the butt to get it if you, okay. So it's gonna look something like that. Can you see it? Focus. Okay, cool. Okay, so it's gonna be something like that. You can hand twist these on, just where it stops. Take your fitting and push it all the way in. Then if you mark with your finger, you don't have to get a Sharpie or anything, but just see how deep that's going. You can see that's going all the way to the nut. So if you're measuring from a coupling or any kind of fitting, you know that this nut here, right there, that's where you start your measurement. It's right there, okay? So now that it's in there on the way, you can kind of hand tighten it a little bit to get it kind of snug on there. Sometimes they'll stay, sometimes they won't. Some of the real more expensive fittings will, like a tri-lock. These are just a dual lock. They have 2 sleeves in it. So what you'll need is now is a 5/8 and 11/16 open-end wrench. So what's so nice about these fittings is that they're common wrench sizes. So let me get this in the middle right here so you guys can see it. So you put your 5/8 wrench in the middle. It's gonna slide on there just like that. Take your 11/16 and then twist the opposite direction. Come towards itself, just like that. In my old line of work, when I worked in oil and gas, I work in food and beverage now, but my own line of work, it was very important for you to mark your crown, your nuts. So what you would do is you do this, and it would need to come all the way around and a quarter of a turn to make sure it's done all the way. Now, I work in food and beverage. Everything is a very low PSI. You're looking at maybe a max of 10 PSI. So getting it that tight isn't necessarily needed. You don't want to over tighten these because it can crush the pipe. But this is a good habit to do. I wish I had done this before. But you go all the way around and you do one. Some other people, there's little gauges that I think Swagelok makes it, that you can put in and it measures how deep it is. You know, you can do that if you want, but I rather just do this system where it's all the way around, quarter of a turn. Some people too, if you don't have a marker, you can count the sides. So you use 7 flats is the way they do it. But once that thing is on there, it's on there. And once it's been swagged on, notice what happens when I take it off. Because these are made to be, the bodies of these are made so that if you need to, you can reuse it. The nut and ferrule will stay. The nut is just loose like that, but this is 100% swagged on there. So let's see if you can see that. I can't really focus. Okay, so you can see that right there. And it spins loosely, but it makes a little dent inside of that holds it on there very tightly. And you cannot get this off. There is a way to get them off. I've done it before, but I wouldn't recommend it because it can question the integrity of the pipe and of these ferrules. These are one-time use ferrules, but what's nice about these ferrules is you can buy just the ferrules and reuse the bodies. And even like this crown or the cap, I can take it all the way around and take it off and reuse it, and it's perfectly safe and fine to reuse no matter what industry you work in. Okay, so that's how you put a coupling on. And that's basically it when it comes to bending tubing, is 90s and offsets show, 180s. That's how you swag on a coupling or a fitting, and then cutting it. 3/8 is the most common size, so you need 5/8, 11/16, but then also if you get into other sizes such as half inch is 13/16 and 7/8, and then quarter inch is I want to say 7/16 and 9/16. I know it's 9/16 for the nut, but I'm not sure what it is for the body. I think it's 7/16. So don't quote me on that, but you can use crescent wrenches. Crescent wrenches will work, but if you're really going to do more than just a little bit of tubing, get yourself a good set open-end wrenches. They don't have to be the ratcheting ones. I just like the ratcheting ones, so if I ever need it, have it. And I like it because it's flat. It doesn't have that little offset in it, so it's, I can get on it pretty good. This is just a Husky brand. They don't have to be snap-on or anything. I mean, if you want snap-on, get it. Do what you want, but these have been great. They're not long, have nice leather on it. And that's about it. If you guys have any questions about it, please leave any questions in the comments. If you guys would like to see more videos like this, please let me know. I might do a video on some different types of tubing, different types of fittings, when to use them, valves, etc. How to lay out your tubing. So if you guys would like that, just leave a comment below. And just don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.